What if I told you that two ideas, born from the same desire to improve human lives, have shaped revolutions, built superpowers, sparked wars, lifted millions out of poverty, and left millions struggling in hardship? Welcome to Financial Empire, where history meets the forces that shape our world. And today we're uncovering one of the greatest ideological battles ever fought: capitalism versus socialism. It all began during the Industrial Revolution, when factories transformed quiet towns into booming cities, machines replaced manual labor, and wealth flowed into the hands of entrepreneurs at an unprecedented pace. For many, this was an age of opportunity, where hard work, innovation, and competition created fortunes that had never been imagined before. This was the spirit of capitalism, an economic system built on private ownership, free markets, and the belief that individuals pursuing their own interests could create prosperity for everyone. Inspired by thinkers like Adam Smith, capitalism argued that when governments interfered less and markets remained free, businesses would compete, innovation would flourish, and society as a whole would benefit. Yet beneath the glittering success of industrialization lay another reality. Factory workers endured exhausting shifts. Children labored in dangerous conditions, wages were often barely enough to survive, and enormous fortunes stood beside crushing poverty. To many observers, the promise of capitalism seemed incomplete. Among the loudest critics were Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, who believed the system was fundamentally unfair. In 1848, they published the Communist Manifesto, arguing that history was a struggle between those who owned wealth and those who created it through labor. They envisioned a society where the means of production belonged to everyone collectively rather than a privileged few. This philosophy became the foundation of socialism, a system emphasizing collective ownership, economic equality, and government responsibility in distributing resources more fairly. As these ideas spread, they ignited political movements across Europe and beyond. The first great experiment arrived in 1917, when the Russian Revolution overthrew the old monarchy. Under Vladimir Lenin and later Joseph Stalin, the Soviet Union sought to replace capitalism with a centrally planned socialist economy. The government controlled industries, agriculture, and production, promising equality and eliminating private ownership of major businesses. At first, many around the world watched with hope, believing a society without extreme inequality was finally possible. But the reality proved far more complicated. While the Soviet Union rapidly industrialized and became a global superpower capable of defeating Nazi Germany and competing in the space race, it also suffered devastating famines, political repression, censorship, forced labor camps, and the loss of millions of lives under authoritarian rule. Meanwhile, capitalist nations were experiencing their own triumphs and failures. The United States emerged as an economic powerhouse driven by private enterprise, technological breakthroughs, and entrepreneurial ambition. Companies transformed everyday life with automobiles, electricity, computers, and eventually the internet. Yet capitalism also revealed its vulnerabilities. The Great Depression of 1929 demonstrated how unchecked financial speculation and collapsing markets could plunge entire societies into unemployment and despair. In response, governments began introducing regulations, public welfare programs, and social safety nets, proving that even capitalist economies often relied on government intervention during times of crisis. Following World War II, the ideological rivalry exploded into the Cold War. For nearly half a century, the United States championed capitalism while the Soviet Union promoted socialism and communism. Their competition reached every corner of the globe through proxy wars, economic aid, political influence, scientific achievements, and nuclear deterrence. The Berlin Wall became the ultimate symbol of this divide, separating two versions of the same city and two visions of humanity's future. Then came 1989. Crowds gathered, hammers struck concrete, and the Berlin Wall fell before the eyes of the world. Soon after, the Soviet Union itself collapsed, and many declared capitalism the undisputed victor. Countries that had embraced centrally planned economies rushed toward market reforms, privatization, and global trade. Yet history did not end there. While capitalism generated extraordinary economic growth, it also contributed to rising inequality, financial crises, environmental challenges, and debates over corporate power. At the same time, socialist-inspired policies such as universal healthcare, free education, unemployment benefits, and worker protections became central features of many successful democracies. Today, very few nations follow pure capitalism or pure socialism. Instead, most operate mixed economies, blending market competition with varying levels of government involvement. Scandinavian countries combine thriving private businesses with extensive public services. China embraces market competition while maintaining significant state control over key industries. Even the United States includes public education, social security, and government-funded infrastructure alongside one of the world's largest private economies. The debate continues because neither system offers perfect answers. Capitalism rewards innovation, but can widen inequality. Socialism seeks fairness, but can reduce incentives and efficiency if poorly managed. The real question is no longer which ideology should completely replace the other, but how societies can balance freedom with security, competition with compassion, and growth with equality. Perhaps the greatest lesson history teaches is that economies are not simply systems of money. They are reflections of human values, hopes, fears, and choices. The battle between capitalism and socialism is not merely about economics. It is about deciding what kind of future we believe people deserve. And that debate remains as powerful today as it was over a century ago.